Hello, everyone. My name is Connor Nichols, and I'm a Renew Nebraska Program Manager with Conservation Nebraska. I wanted to thank you all for coming to this program, focused on the basics of energy efficiency and how, without it, individuals and communities can become energy burdened. We're going to be outlining what energy burden means and how energy efficiency improvements can help address that issue. Just a few reminders for everybody. Attendees will have their cameras off and microphones muted, so you can't be seen or heard. Any questions you may have can be put into the Q&A section towards the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of the presentation. Additionally, this webinar is being recorded, so if you miss anything or want to watch it again, you should be able to find it on our YouTube channel in a few weeks. It's going to be under the name Conservation Nebraska. Lastly, there will be a short poll towards the end of the webinar. If you could please take the time to fill that out before you leave, we'd really appreciate it, as it helps us to hold and improve future events. That being said, please allow me to introduce our speaker, Clara Stein. Clara is a Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Associate at the Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, also known as MEEA, and serves as MEEA's Nebraska Policy State Lead. During her time with MEEA, she has studied the policy landscape surrounding industrial energy efficiency, the water and energy efficiency nexus, pre-weatherization, and energy burden. Prior to joining MEEA, Clara worked for the Montana Conservation Voters Education Fund, a League of Conservation Voters affiliate, assisting in the development of communication strategies. She later conducted research sponsored by the Colorado College State of the Rockies project on the intersection of housing affordability and decarbonization in the Rocky Mountain West. Clara earned her degree from Colorado College, majoring in environmental studies and minoring in mathematical modeling. Now that introductions are finished, I'll let her take it ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Bear with me for a second while I share my screen. All right, and Connor, unless you say otherwise, I'm going to assume everyone can see all right. But thank you again for tuning with us today on St. Patrick's Day. I appreciate you guys giving a piece of your night to learn a little bit about energy efficiency and energy burdens. As Connor said, my name's Clara Stein. I'm a policy associate with Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, and I am MEEA's Nebraska State Lead. So just to start us off, a little bit of an agenda. We'll start off by talking a little bit more about MEEA and then giving an overview of Midwest energy efficiency to add some context to energy efficiency in Nebraska. And then we'll dive into some basics on energy burden and how energy efficiency really plays into that conversation. So first off, Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance is a collaborative network promoting energy efficiency to optimize energy generation, reduce consumption, create jobs, and decrease carbon emissions in all Midwest communities. MEEA is a 501c3 nonprofit membership organization, so we do not lobby, and we have over 170 plus members across our 13-state region. These members include energy service companies, state and local governments, academic and research institutions, electric and gas utilities, and community-based organizations. In Nebraska, NDEE is one of our members, along with a few other regional affiliates, but happy to be talking with you all today. So a little overview on Midwest energy efficiency and kind of energy efficiency more broadly, just to level set before we dive into this conversation. So energy efficiency, what we're really talking about is doing the same or more using less energy. So this may take the form of a technology, a process improvement, or behavior change. Our go-to example when we're talking about energy efficiency is lighting. It's kind of one of the pillars of energy efficiency and what really kickstarted a lot of these conversations. It's also just a great example. So say you open up your electric bill and you see that it's a lot higher than you want it to be and your energy usage is a lot higher than you want it to be. So you think about all the lights in your house, and you kind of have two paths. In option A, if you want to reduce this energy, you can start thinking about turning off more lights every day. Say you're like a 5-lamp a room person and you decide just to turn one on at night, or you decide to wait to turn on your overhead lights until it's fully dark. This is really changing your quality of life. It's changing your experience, and you're not really doing the same thing anymore. We call that energy conservation. So it's really just cutting down on your energy usage. Like you're having to do some more changes to your lifestyle in order to get those savings. On the other side, we have energy efficiency. So this is where instead of turning off your lights for more hours a day, you would replace all of your light bulbs with an LED light bulb, a high efficiency technology that allows you to use the same amount of light you always want to use, but use significantly less energy on the day to day. So we measure energy efficiency in the number of kilowatt hours for electricity or therms for gas that would otherwise have been needed to perform the same task or function. So we think about a delta of our old, less efficient technology, say that old light bulb, and an LED light bulb. Really, this space is energy efficiency. Energy efficiency has a myriad of benefits. We'll get into a lot of these throughout the presentation, but just kind of a sneak peek to get us started. Energy efficiency is the most affordable energy resource. We will get into some more comparisons with generation resources in the next slide. Energy efficiency has a positive return on investment. In Midwest states, for every dollar invested in energy efficiency, there's a return of about $2 to $3 in benefits. This is across generation resources, transmission resources, other energy infrastructure, as well as kind of health benefits to customers and other more societal benefits. Energy efficiency creates jobs. In Nebraska in 2023, energy efficiency accounted for almost 14,000 jobs. That's out of about 24,000 clean energy jobs. So we're really talking about over half of clean energy jobs in the state. Across the Midwest, it's nearly 500,000 jobs. In Nebraska, of those energy efficiency providers, there are about 2,100 energy efficiency businesses. 93% of those are small businesses, so less than 100 employees. So we really see the economic impact in our communities of energy efficiency as an investment. Energy efficiency also enhances grid flexibility. It works really well with two other innovative energy technologies that we talk about a lot in these spaces: demand response and distributed energy resources. These three really work together to create an innovative grid for the future, and one that can really manage this unprecedented demand that we're experiencing now. And energy efficiency fosters energy affordability and reduces energy burdens, really the focus of this conversation. But it can be a really impactful tool to lighten the load on households, especially as costs get higher these days. So this is what we were talking about on the last slide, with energy efficiency as the most affordable energy resource. This is an analysis that our policy team did that's really comparing energy efficiency investments with other utility investments into generation resources. So what we talk about a lot on the generation side is how much more affordable solar PV at a utility scale and wind at a utility scale is than other fossil fuel resources, which we see very clearly. But oftentimes energy efficiency doesn't really play a part in those resource conversations. But really, when you compare the investment into energy efficiency, $1 per megawatt that a utility could invest to save that megawatt versus generate that megawatt, we really see that energy efficiency is a competitive investment and one that's worth thinking about when we get into the resource planning process. So a little bit more information on kind of the energy efficiency ecosystem that Nebraska is sitting within. So there are several forms of energy efficiency policy in the Midwest. They can generally be distinguished as being mandatory or voluntary. On this map here, you'll see these green states, these blue states, these gray states. So we can start with diving into these green states. So these all have energy efficiency resource standards, or EARs. These are passed by legislation, signed into law by a governor, and then implemented and regulated by a public utility commission. But an EARs will require investor-owned utilities, gas and electric, to invest a certain amount of money to directly into energy efficiency programs or invest money to reach a certain level of energy savings. So these will stimulate a large amount of energy efficiency spending from the utility side and pretty wide arching programs. In our blue states, we see kind of an alternative approach to energy efficiency policy. In these states, Like Kansas and Missouri, we see energy efficiency investment acts. In Kansas, that's the KEA. In Missouri, that's the other MEEA, to make our acronyms especially confusing. But these allow utilities to run energy efficiency programs, but it's not required. And then they're able to recoup the costs of running those programs from the Public Utility Commission through ratepayer dollars. So these are all kind of policy mechanisms to really incentivize and encourage utilities or mandate utilities to run energy efficiency programs because states have seen the power of those investments. Nebraska is a really special case, as you all know, because all electricity is through public power districts. This means that public power districts and electricity providers are not regulated by the Public Utilities Commission and are not statutorily required to run energy efficiency programs. But we still see a fair amount of investment into energy efficiency. This is kind of a state-by-state comparison of total electricity and natural gas investment across the Midwest region. So you'll see that kind of these higher investment points really correlate with some of those green EAR states that we have, Illinois, Michigan, and Minnesota. They have really progressive policies that require a high amount of spending from their largest investor-owned utilities. But as we see kind of further down, that even these states that don't require utilities to invest in energy efficiency still see tens of millions of dollars going into these programs because they see the impact of those investments for their ratepayers, for their infrastructure, and kind of for their opportunities to meet those demand requirements. And even along this line of Midwest states, we still see that Nebraska invests significantly more than other states in the Midwest, which is especially impressive given that there are no real regulatory components to incentivize or require them to do that. It is really on the merits of the investment. So getting into some policy basics of Nebraska energy efficiency, that $7 million is majorly made up by the three largest public power districts in Nebraska: OPPD's Power to Save program, LES's Sustainable Energy program, and NPPD's Energy Wise incentives. OPPD invests about $2.2 million a year, LES around 2.4, and NPPD about $500,000. The other public power districts also invest a significant amount in energy efficiency, but these are really the three notable ones. Other state actors in this conversation are the Nebraska Public Service Commission, who regulate gas utilities, who do not really run energy efficiency programs in Nebraska at this time. And the Nebraska Power Review Board, who prepare and file the Coordinated Long-Range Power Supply Plan that really conglomerates a lot of information surrounding energy efficiency and sustainability measures at the public power districts. And then the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy, NDEE, is the state energy office for Nebraska and really stewards most of the federal energy efficiency programs and investments in the state. So enabling statutes in Nebraska, there are no statutes that require utilities to operate energy efficiency programs or dedicate spending on low-income energy efficiency programs, as we see in some other states. However, all public utilities are required to practice integrated resource planning, where they're required to treat demand and supply resources on a consistent basis. So integrated resource planning, IRPs are kind of a second puzzle piece in this conversation. Resource planning is really forecasting how much demand utilities are expecting over a certain amount of time. They identify possible risks that could prevent utilities from meeting long-term energy needs and consider the possible resources that could be used to meet that demand. So utilities will create long-term forecasts and then model possible expansion scenarios, looking at future costs, risks, and grid needs, and choose the most costly potential option. So the best practice that MEEA really advocates for is to model energy efficiency alongside supply side resources in the resource selection modeling. Really thinking back to that graph that we saw that compares all of the costs of resources and really giving energy efficiency the chance to compete and receive a little bit more investment on the utility side. So in Nebraska, in statute, It says that Nebraska shall practice integrated resource planning and include least cost options when evaluating alternatives for providing energy supply and managing energy demand in Nebraska. So public power districts outline their own IRP process and requirements, but tend to conduct IRP planning around every 5 years. So some program basics and thinking about program design. Starting off with some of the non-utility energy efficiency programs. There is a consistent federal investment in energy efficiency. We see that through the Weatherization Assistance Program, which has been funded since 1976, and the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, or LIHEAP. So the Weatherization Assistance Program, or WAP, is one of the longest running energy efficiency programs in the country. The Department of Energy will distribute funds to states annually to state energy offices, and then state energy offices will re-grant those funds to community action agencies who will then implement weatherization projects for low and moderate income households. The Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program is primarily a energy bill assistance program that will help low-income families pay energy bills when they are behind on payments. But states also have the option to redirect 15% of LIHEAP funds to the Weatherization Assistance Program and really provide that program with a boost of funding. Some additional federal programs that are coming into play, hopefully this year, are the home energy rebates. So the home energy rebates were an Inflation Reduction Act component, or the IRA, and those are broken down into two programs: the home efficiency rebates, or HOMES, and home electrification and appliance rebates, or HERE. A lot of acronyms in energy efficiency. But overall, Nebraska has been awarded $91 million in home energy rebates between these two programs. So HOMES is open to all income levels. Incentives vary based on energy savings achieved. And incentives can cover heating and cooling, appliances, and envelope upgrades. The HERE program is only available to households under 150% of the area median income. So this is that low and moderate customer sector. Eligible measures include heat pumps, water heaters, insulation, air sealing, and electrical panel upgrades. These incentives cap out at about $14,000 per household, but those vary by state. And then there's the NDEE One Red program. This program is branched off of a climate pollution reduction fund grant that Nebraska earned. And a piece of that program is for pre-weatherization for low and moderate income households. So pre-weatherization is another aspect of energy efficiency. Basically, when you're doing weatherization upgrades, which may be air sealing your house, changing out windows, adding insulation, upgrading your furnace, a lot of these pieces that really work to secure your indoor environment, there may be other home repairs that are required to make those improvements feasible. So, say repairing a roof is not inherently related to your energy efficiency. But if you have a hole in your roof and you do all these other energy efficiency upgrades, you're just going to have energy leaking through your roof. So that repair is really required to make weatherization possible and cost effective. There are other pieces like health and safety components like mold and asbestos remediation or pest reduction that are really just required to make your home healthy in coordination with weatherization. And oftentimes those issues can lead to a deferral from the WAP program. So this funding through the One Red program is really pivotal to opening up access to WAP for households across Nebraska. So getting into a little bit more of what energy efficiency programs at utilities look like. Energy efficiency programs at utilities will be built out into an energy efficiency portfolio that'll encompass all energy efficiency programs. And then it'll divide out into different sectors. So you'll have the residential sector, and then you'll have the commercial and industrial sector, sometimes split into two separate, sometimes bunched together. And then as you trickle down, you will divide into different classes and segments. So on the residential side, you'll have single family homes and you'll have multifamily homes. And then within there, you'll also have market rate households, low income households. On the commercial industrial side, you'll include pieces of multifamily buildings, like the common areas, as well as businesses, commercial buildings, and industrial buildings. Another kind of outcropping of these programs is high energy industries, such as data centers or refinement centers. Those pieces that really use a really different level of energy than other customers. On the portfolio side, when people are building portfolios, there really is a balancing act between a lot of different pieces. Utilities are trying to think about short-term and long-term savings, broad and deep savings, degrees of cost effectiveness, meeting different program goals, and serving different customer segments. So different types of programs will hold different benefits for the utility, for the customer, and it's really trying to figure out where best to put those investments and how best to spread those investments out, especially in cases like public power districts where your customers are really your customer owners, and these are their dollars and their investments being seen. So a big piece of this, when we're thinking about portfolios, is improving access to energy efficiency. That's what a lot of these federal programs are working to do, and that's what a lot of utilities are working to do, and trying to figure out policies and programs that allow them to do this in a cost-effective manner. So multifamily and income qualified customers are oftentimes hard to reach because these customers and these upgrades require a higher amount of capital from a utility, and there often aren't as deep of energy savings as they might see if they invested the same amount in a large industry that uses an absorbent amount of energy and therefore can cut a lot more energy from a demand. But we really advocate for these energy efficiency programs on the grounds that they're the right thing to do, they benefit customers, they benefit the grid, and they really have a chance to impact people's lives and livelihoods. So affordable multifamily housing is currently in a crisis as a single family affordable housing. And a lot of times local governments and utilities don't have much that they can do about rent hikes or home prices. But energy costs is somewhere where investment in energy efficiency can really begin to impact those day-to-day, month-to-month household costs. We also see energy efficiency as a really important metric and component to addressing racial disparities in historically underserved or underinvested communities. By investing more strategically into communities and offering energy efficiency programs for households that have not received the same amount of investment as other households over time, some of those burdens can begin to be relieved and some of those disparities shrunk. So a little bit more on energy burden, our other topic in this webinar. Energy burden is really the percentage of gross household income spent on total energy costs. So all households feel a certain amount of energy burden. We're all required to pay our energy bills, our gas, and our electricity. And the way that you calculate energy burden is displayed in this nice graphic from Efficiency Vermont, where you divide your energy spending by your household income to calculate your total energy burden. And while we all feel an energy burden, some of us feel it very differently. We like to think about this, and an easier way to conceptualize it as a high energy burden or an extreme energy burden. This is when you hit thresholds above 6% of your household income or above 10% of your household income, where energy costs really begin to take a significant amount of your household's budget to the point where this can cause instability or insecurity if there are other events that happen, if certain decisions have to be made on what costs can fit within a budget for that month. And people may begin to fall back on energy bills or other bills for the sake of being able to pay their energy bills. And it becomes more of a balancing act, creating stress for households and potentially housing insecurity. And energy burden trends. Energy burden really disproportionately impacts low-income households. This is due to a higher economic burden relative to income, as well as an older and less efficient housing stock. Low-income communities are often in disinvested communities where housing stock is not as upgraded or up to date as in higher income communities. These may lead to leakier buildings or infrastructure, insulation that has degraded over time, windows that aren't as double glazed or triple glazed as newer households, and older heating systems that really just aren't efficient. And as all of these things add up, you really start to see a burden and a large amount of energy waste that leads to higher energy bills. So MEEA conducted a quick study of the OPPD service territory um, earlier this year that looked at 254 census tracts and OPPD's counties on kind of three different segments of income. So we looked at the whole population of 0 to 100 and plus percent AMI, where across census tracts, we saw 9 tracts with an average of a high energy burden. So that's still significant. That's still whole communities on average experiencing this burden. But as we started to limit our search to more confined income levels, 0 to 80% and 0 to 60%, we really started to see these numbers rise for high energy burden and severe energy burden, to the point where in the 0 to 60% AMI tract, we saw that 197 census tracts out of 254 experience on average a high energy burden. So these are really significant numbers, and we thought really telling and about the correlation between income level and the likelihood of experiencing energy burden. And these components really play into kind of non-energy benefits of energy efficiency and where energy efficiency fits into the wider conversation around health and investing in our communities. So people spend about 90% of their time indoors. So it's no surprise that the quality of our indoor environment influences our health. What may be surprising is the environmental quality of our homes and workplace is determined in part by the efficiency of our buildings. Buildings that are leaky and lack adequate insulation can have moisture issues, including mold and dampness. These conditions, coupled with inconsistent indoor temperatures, can lead to building-related illness such as asthma, headaches, and fatigue, in addition to colds, allergies, and poor mental health. These health impacts are really compounding, and we see a lot of these illnesses as epidemics in youth, especially asthma. They also play into economic burdens for households. And we found that a greater investment in energy efficiency can lead to fewer annual doctor's visits and missed work days, as well as missed school days for children. We've also found that higher investment in energy efficiency can lead to a lower risk of foreclosure or need to change residence due to energy bills, an improved property value. In general, these are investments in assets. We're talking about upgrading households, upgrading appliances. All of these pieces can really come back for a positive return on investment for homeowners as well as utilities. And again, this community job creation, almost 14,000 jobs in Nebraska is no small feat. And the greater the investment in energy efficiency, the greater yield of jobs and these community economic opportunities. Really kind of a last point here is that the negative health effects triggered by poor indoor environmental quality make up 14% of healthcare costs today. That's a significant burden on our communities and on households, and is a great place to start thinking about why energy efficiency is such an important investment. And that's really my slides for today. Thank you all for listening, and I would love to open it up to questions if anyone has any. And if there are no questions right now, here's my email. I'd be happy to answer anything over email or meet with anyone who would like to talk more.
Yeah, so thank you so much for the presentation, Clara. That was very interesting, and it's always really interesting to learn some of those statistics and hear about how different communities are a little bit more burdened than others. We did have one question from Ryan. What counts towards those figures on utility energy efficiency spending? For example, I think MUD Omaha's gas utility has some rebates for new gas appliances that have minimum efficiency requirements, but it doesn't seem like MEEA counts those.
Yeah, we pull our energy efficiency numbers from the EIA, I believe 819 form. I don't know. I don't believe that gas was included in our Nebraska numbers because they're not filed under the same document. But Ryan, I can follow up with you and get you those exact numbers.
Awesome. Well, yeah, if anybody else has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm also going to be launching a poll real quick just to ask you a few questions about the event and what you learned and all that good stuff. So if you could take some time to answer that real quick, we'd really appreciate it. But yeah, no, other than that, I do think one thing I would love to mention is that this is going to be an ongoing series. So if folks are interested, our next one should be focused more on specific areas. I believe the next one we're planning on is specifically focused on Omaha and the statistics of energy burdened households within the Omaha area. So make sure to keep an eye on that as that gets posted and scheduled. But appreciate everybody filling out the poll. We do have another question from Al. Has MEEA considered doing this kind of study on many of our rural communities? In most small towns, incomes are low and the residential properties are very old.
That is a great question. We did our OPPD study in kind of preparation for SD7 and really thinking about energy efficiency as an investment there. But we are open to doing additional analyses. We have all of the data from the 2020 census, and I'd be happy to look at any communities more closely, especially as would be helpful for folks' projects. So yeah, I'd love to talk more about that, Al.
Yeah. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to drop those real quick. But other than that, I think we'll begin wrapping up. Yeah, if anybody has anything that they think of later, feel free to message myself. That's going to be, let me put my email in the chat and I can pass it on to Clara, or yeah, Clara looks like she already put her email in there, so feel free to message her directly. But yeah, once again, want to thank everybody for coming out, and I hope you have a good rest of your night. Enjoy the weather. We're supposed to be getting a blizzard soon, so thank you very much.
That's great. Thanks everyone for coming. Have a good night.